Congratulations, you've got an interview. So, what happens next? What can you do to ace the interview and make the best impression possible? Interestingly, it's one of the most common questions we're asked at NES Fircroft, and often comes up as we support candidates in finding their next role. Anxiety for an important interview is common, but a lot of that anxiety comes from the unknown, the pressure to be your best on the day, and overthinking the potential outcomes. So, before we continue, take a deep breath. In this podcast, we'll talk about some of our leading tips on being your best self in an interview, giving the best impression, and hopefully getting rid of some of that anxiety. Research the company and interviewers where possible. You've probably already done this when considering the role, but go back through the company website and their social media presence. Learn as much as you can about the company, their projects, and the sort of impression they give through their posts and comments. There are a few advantages to doing this. Firstly, you might find information that you can ask questions about in the interview, which shows you've done your research, and that goes a long way with the interviewers. Secondly, you'll get an idea of the tone and culture of the company, and whether you fit that company. After all, you could be with this company for a few years, so the more you know and understand in advance, the better. You can also look into the profiles of your interviewers if you know their names, and again, get a feel for what they like and dislike. You don't want to bring up the golf trip they posted about on Facebook last year, of course, but if you can tell that they're quite formal in their appearance and writing style, you have a good idea of how to speak to them during the interview to set the best impression. Practice your interview answers. Interview common questions. Next, it's time to practice your interview questions and answers. There are some resources online that include common interview questions that can help. You could also ask a friend to interview you as practice. Regarding the questions you can expect, first think about the purpose of an interview. The interviewer will first look to see if you have the skills and experience for the role. Obviously, this is important. They're also looking for more insight into your soft skills. Skills that aren't necessarily on paper, but are just as crucial for success in any role. This will include communication, teamwork, working under pressure, thinking independently, and planning skills. Because knowing how to do the job is just a part of the puzzle. A company needs to know that you'll fit into the team dynamic, you'll get along with the rest of the team, you'll be able to work with independence and initiative, and continue learning and developing while in the role. After all, hiring is an expensive and time-intensive task, and the company you're applying for wants to make sure they're making the right decision in hiring you, just as much as you want to be sure the job is right for you. Review your own CV and past experiences that are relevant. While it's too late now to make any changes to your CV, reread it to ensure you know what you told the interviewer. They will have reviewed it and formed many of their questions around it, so it's essential to know precisely what they're talking about when they ask for more information. If you can, take a copy in with you, and you can always print some more to hand out if anyone in the interview needs an additional copy. Again, that shows you're proactive and prepared. Prepare your own questions confidently. All interviews end with a final question. Do you have any questions for us? And there is a wrong answer. It's also likely that at the end of the interview, your body and mind will want to relax, and if you haven't prepared any questions, or written any down during the interview, you risk being unable to think of any. Read back through the job description and use the opportunity to find out more information about the company. This is an opportunity to show that you've researched the company, that you've been listening during the interview, and that you can think critically about the next step in your career. Remember that even a seasoned interviewer will now be in their wrapping up mindset and relaxing a bit as they're about to switch from an interview mindset to taking a short break. Firstly, think of questions that relate to the role. Consider questions about the company that will affect your day-to-day job. How many people will you be working with? Does the job have any travel requirements not mentioned in the description? What is the first priority in the role? What immediate challenge does the company look to fix by hiring you? Is there a training and development budget? What is the typical career path within the role you're applying for with their company specifically? Secondly, think about the wider company. This will help you understand the culture a bit better. What do your interviewers enjoy most about working there? Does the company socialize after hours? Do they hold any key events or weekly events? What is the approach to appraisal? What is the probation period? Is there anything in the local area that is popular with the current employees, like a gym or regular cafe? Finally, think about follow-up questions about the process. Do they need any further information? Is there anything else on your CV they'd like to discuss? What are the next steps in the hiring process? When are they planning to make a decision? If you're researching tackling interviews, you might have also read that this is also a good time to ask for feedback about the interview. For example, how well did you do? Are there any weakness areas that they've highlighted? Is there anything you can improve on? Think carefully about these questions and how they change the interviewer's perception of you. You could be unintentionally putting yourself in a negative light right at the end of the interview. You can always ask for feedback from the recruiter later down the process. The day before. So you get to the day or evening before the interview and you're ready to do some prep. Here are some of the key things to consider. Reread the job description, memorize important details. Revise the role and the job description, and focus on the details of the experience and skills required. You want to make sure you remember as much as possible before going into the interview, so you're not caught out by any questions. Pay attention to where there are gaps in your skills and experience, because that's likely to come up. You can always print and take a copy of the job description to take with you for reference. Plan your journey. The last thing you want to happen on the interview day is to be late for a reason you could have predicted. Trains can be delayed and accidents while driving can happen, but there's a lot you can do to plan ahead. Google Maps, for example, can predict traffic based on the time of day, so you get a good idea of what travel time will be like if you're driving. Expected roadworks or rail maintenance works are also often listed on local government or transport websites, or even in the local news, and it might be worth 5 minutes to research quickly if any of this work affects your journey. And if you're driving, be sure you're aware of parking requirements and restrictions and any extra time to walk from where you're parked. Use this information to know precisely what time you need to leave and have everything prepared the night before to go. And maybe leave 5 minutes earlier than that. You should also plan what you're wearing. This one's simple. For an interview, you should always be clean and presentable. But learn as much as you can about the company culture and dress code beforehand, and plan accordingly. Plan for the weather too, and take what you need. Take a notebook rather than a tablet or phone. You should definitely take notes in your interview, and you don't want to take notes on a phone or tablet. Even if you're disciplined enough not to open other notifications on your phone, your interviewer will almost certainly see it as impolite. Just take a notepad and pen with any notes you've made about the role and any questions. It'll keep you focused on the interview and away from distractions or annoying or embarrassing notifications. Aim to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. Ideally, aim to arrive at the interview's location 5 minutes before that, to allow time to get through any reception areas, through car parks, or navigate lifts or stairs. If you're really early, you can always stop at a nearby cafe, sit outside and take a short break before entering. Breathe. It sounds silly, but don't forget to breathe. Give yourself a minute or two before you enter to pause, take a couple of deep, slow breaths to calm any nerves before you go through the door. Perhaps remind yourself that they chose your CV for a reason, and your chances of getting the role are just as high as anyone else they're interviewing. At interview. You're through the door, and all your preparation has led to the next hour of your time. Make the best of it. Remember, throughout your time at the employer's location, you need to project confidence and positivity. This is from the moment you approach the building to the moment you've left. Remember, you could bump into your interviewer on the stairs on the way to the interview, or follow someone out who has a say in the hiring process. So, it's vital to maintain a good attitude and manner, and not just in the interview room. Present yourself confidently, smile with an open mouth, and make eye contact where you can. Make sure you're addressing people by their preferred names. Be kind, polite, and respectful to those around you. That's good advice for life, but it's particularly important when someone could be assessing you before you've even sat down. Also, remember that you're interviewing your potential employer as much as they're interviewing you. It's a two-way street. So pay attention to the environment, how the people already there interact, and how people speak to you. This will be important in deciding if the job is right for you, just as much as if you're suitable for the job. Once you've settled and met everyone, the interview will start and will likely be for a strict time. There are lots of potential questions at an interview, but common questions include: why do you want to work for this company? You'll have made notes in your research phase for the role, but you're looking for specific reasons why the company's work, values and culture appeal to you. Do you have a passion for the industry? Is it a natural progression in your career? Can you see the next few career steps with the same company? If it's a contract or temporary position, is it to gain valuable experience with an industry leader, learn new skills, or work on a specific project? What are your greatest strengths? What is your biggest weakness? This one can feel like a difficult question for many people because they consider the question from the wrong angle. A strength is something unique to you that makes you good at what you do and brings value to the company. That could be your passion for learning, interest in a skill or task relevant to the role, or transferable skills that help the company. Avoid boasting and generic answers like "I'm always on time" or "I'm really organised." Weaknesses are worse, and this is probably the question most people are scared of the most. And that's because many people mistake weaknesses for flaws. The most straightforward answer is to think of a requirement in the job description that you don't meet. Do you lack knowledge of specific equipment? Are you missing the required management experience? Is there something you'd like to learn as part of the role? Your answer should be phrased as something you'd like to improve on, and something your prospective employer can help with. And, as I mentioned before, don't think of weaknesses as flaws. You don't want to start talking about personal flaws in an interview, being self-derogatory or "I sometimes struggle with timekeeping," "I'm a perfectionist," "I have a really short and explosive temper." You get the idea. Tell me about a challenge you overcame at work. We'll talk about the STAR technique shortly, but ultimately, the purpose of this question is to learn how you deal with challenge and stress, and how you can treat these challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. This means you don't necessarily have to overcome the challenge. What's important is how you handled it and what you learned. If you think hard enough, you'll have encountered at least one of these at any workplace. So think about what happened, what you did, what the result was, and what you learned from it. Other versions of this question might be: how do you handle stress at work? Tell us about a difficult client and how you resolved the situation. Or, how do you handle high-pressure situations? It's to test your resilience and positivity under pressure. How you handle the question can be just as important as the answer you give. If you're giving it poorly under stress, that says just as much to the interviewer as the answer itself. Why do you want to leave your current role? So, this is another risky one, and whatever you do, don't take this opportunity to tell them how bad your previous job was. You need to come across as positive, goal-orientated, and easy to work with. The most straightforward answer here, of course, is that you're looking for new opportunities to progress, and you've reached the end of what you could have achieved in your previous role. Or perhaps you want to move to another country or region. Maybe you weren't looking in particular, but the opportunity at the new company was too good to miss. So, what does the new job have that the old one doesn't? How does the move benefit you positively? Try to think on these terms, because a candidate who complains or gossips is the opposite of the type of person any company is looking to hire. What is your most impressive work achievement? This is another common question, but thankfully it's easy when you've prepared yourself and have a structured answer. Hopefully you'll have at least one achievement in a previous role that you can talk about: improving a process, reducing overheads, coming up with new ideas, or even noting high performance. Again, the interviewer is looking for someone who can be proactive and independent. Just being able to do the role on paper doesn't separate you from the other candidates. Try not to boast, but if you have statistics or figures like "I implemented a new system that decreased a task time by an hour a day," That'll be impressive. Can you explain this gap on your CV? Despite what you might think, this question isn't to find out if you have a secret you don't want to discuss. And it's unlikely that you took a year or two out of work to do nothing. The question is intended to gauge how up-to-date your skills are and how quickly you'll integrate into the workplace. If you've taken a year out, can you get up to speed quickly? Or did you use the time to gain additional skills and experience that make you stand out as a candidate? The best advice to answer this question is to be honest and positive and consider how that time could benefit the company. Perhaps you took time to reflect on your career and plan your next moves. Maybe you needed some personal time to adjust to a new situation. Even if you were taking a career break, what were you doing to make sure you could make good decisions when you came back? Did you learn any new skills or experience anything relevant to the role? Even a year out to travel can look good to an employer if you discuss how you developed your social skills, planning, self-reliance, and any other learned experiences while traveling. What is your salary expectation? Unless this has been discussed beforehand and you're aware of the salary, this question is important to the interviewer to ensure your expectations are within the budget for the role. If the job description is posted as salary negotiable, then the easiest method is to search for similar roles in the area and benchmark your expectations against that. You can tell the employer you've done that research and whether you're happy to accept the average range for the job. You might even suggest a higher salary if your experience and skills are warranted. You could also add that you're willing to negotiate. Of course, that's expected, but it gives the interviewer an upper range to work with when negotiating your contract further down the line. Don't guess, and don't suggest a set amount like your previous salary, as it's pretty likely that an employer will negotiate down instead of up. And finally, are you applying for other jobs? Almost all interviewers will ask this because it gives them an idea of the urgency of hiring you if they think you're the right person for the job. It also gives them an idea of how likely you are to accept an offer elsewhere, depending on where you are in the interview process. Unless you're applying because it's a unique opportunity, as we mentioned earlier, there's a good chance that you'll be at least looking, if not applying. So be honest, perhaps explain that you're looking at a couple of opportunities, and why you're most excited about this one. It could work in your favour if the interviewer feels like they've struck gold and don't want to risk losing out to another company. When answering these questions, remember you can pause to think or ask to be more specific. Just have strategies to avoid saying you don't know the answer to any questions, or can't provide what's being asked for. The best method to structure the answers to your questions is the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. First, set the scene and give the necessary details of your example. Secondly, describe what your responsibility was in that scenario. Then explain what actions you took to address that situation, before finally defining what outcome was achieved. Avoid saying the company or we when discussing these scenarios. Always focus on what you did, your experience and your actions. While it's great that you can compliment a team effort, the interview is really about you. At the end of the interview, thank everyone for their time and ask about the next steps. Try to stay relaxed but composed. Remember to keep in interview mode until after you've left. Also, consider what else you can do to make a positive impression. Offer to take your cup back if you've had a drink, and make sure you leave the interview area tidy. And that's it. Following these tips will help you improve your interview, but the key takeaways are to be well organised before the interview, be on time, and be friendly and confident in yourself. Have some examples of your critical experience and skills prepared. Take your time and answer each question thoughtfully. Remain positive throughout, even when talking about challenging experiences. And remember that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Ask questions, and decide if this role is right for you. And while nobody enjoys rejection, the good news is the more you interview, the more practice you'll get, and the better you'll become. So, even if you don't get the job, you've had an opportunity to learn and improve your skills for next time. That's all we have to discuss today, but thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast or have any questions, you can let us know in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more episodes of EngineeringPro. If you're looking for a job in the engineering industry, visit www.nesfircroft.com for more information, insights, and job opportunities. Thanks for joining us today.